Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on this edition of the Primetime Newscast on EQUINOXE Television, live from my headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. In our top stories in this edition of the news, several decades after independence, water remains a scarce product in the Republic of Cameroon, from the big cities right into the hinterlands. Several inhabitants, or millions of inhabitants, go without the precious liquid. In this newscast, we will tell you about a locality in the far north region of the Republic of Cameroon which has not had potable water supply for over 53 years. We will also talk about the devastating consequences of the Anglophone crisis, notably on the educational sector in the southwest and northwest regions of Cameroon. Those were our top stories. We begin this newscast in the locality of Yola Nasarau village. It is a village in the Diamare division, far north region of the Republic of Cameroon. Inhabitants of that village are suffering severely because of the problem of no potable water supply. Potable water has not been supplied in that locality for the past 53 years. The inhabitants are obtaining water from doubtful sources, with all the risk that goes with the consumption of contaminated water. The whole village is depending on two poorly constructed boreholes. EQUINOXE has more.
These inhabitants of Yola Nasarau in the Gazawa subdivision of the Diamare division, situated over 31 kilometers from the town of Marwa, far north region, have suffered lack of potable water and electricity for 53 years.
On fait 2 kilomètres pour aller chercher l'eau du marigot, mais on ne va pas. On boit l'eau de la rue qui n'a même pas de goût. Ça de sable.
The close to 20,000 inhabitants have been fetching water from unhealthy sources for consumption.
On cherche l'eau au maillot, on n'a même pas le temps pour préparer, on n'a même pas le temps parce qu'il n'y a pas l'eau.
Even two wells, which have existed for long, provided them water with unpleasant smell and colors.
Nos puits qui sont autour de cette rivière sont aujourd'hui au-delà de 10 mètres de profondeur, ce qui fait que les mamans ne peuvent plus puiser de l'eau.
Most cattle rearers have abandoned the activity due to insufficient water to also sustain the animals. Illnesses suffered from are caused by waterborne diseases.
Une étude a démontré que notre village regorge le taux le plus de schistosomiase.
Religious authorities have been intensifying prayers to ensure the situation does not aggravate in Yola Nasarau. Prayers which have been heard as today a borehole has been constructed having 6 taps with the flowing potable water regarded by the inhabitants as gold.
C'est un souvenir qui restera inoubliable.
C'est à grâce de Dieu qu'on a vu l'eau, parce que nous n'avons pas la moyenne pour construire l'eau comme ça.
After over 50 years of disparity of this precious liquid, a sight of relief could be felt from the population.
Nous sommes vraiment satisfaits, ainsi que la population qui suit les guides traditionnels.
This project was financed to the tune of 16 million francs CFA by the Gazawa Municipal Council.
On vous remercie beaucoup parce que vous nous a donné l'eau ici. Merci pour vous beaucoup.
Beneficiaries managed to contribute 200,000 francs CFA despite their poor status for maintenance of the reviving borehole. A borehole supplemented by 2 water tanks, 5,000 liters each, to store the precious liquids, and 6 solar thermal panels of 250 watts of energy. All these to enhance provision of healthy water for the first time in the history of the village. Mayor of the Gazawa Council, Adama Mana, while inaugurating the borehole, urged the inhabitants of Yola Nasarau to take good care of the system.
Parce qu'il ne faut pas qu'ils laissent le forage comme ça à la portée de tout le monde, n'importe qui vient, quand ça va se gâter, ils vont peut-être encore courir de gauche à droite. Donc, ils vont faire un comité de gestion.
A call women have pledged to respect.
Maintenant, nous les femmes, on balaye ça, on voit un peu les saletés, on lave ça.
An expatriate has been arrested by elements of the Mobile Intervention Unit of the police force here in Douala over the theft of parts of vehicles. He was arrested during a raid led by Commissioner Mefire in the Kang Yabasi neighborhood here in Douala. Smanjikan Gabriel has the details.
Different parts of vehicles discovered under a bed in a residence at the Yabasi neighborhood in Douala. The discovery was made by the elements of JMI number 2 during their routine control in Cameroon's economic capital. The owner of the residence where the car parts were kept says the security forces have no proofs. You've not seen anything in my house. You have no proofs. They are not my things. The alleged thief of the car parts, already handcuffed, is accused of buying car parts that have been stolen in one of the shortcuts in the Yabasi neighborhood. Commissioner Mefire and his boys transport the discovered car parts in an uncontrollable atmosphere. Before the police took off with the alleged thief, the lady who had earlier denied the accusations is opening up as she exposes other crimes in the neighborhood. Everyone in Kam Yabasi is a thief. Since you want my downfall, I will expose you all. Everyone will be arrested. The aspect of car parts being stolen in Cameroon's economic capital is not strange, as each day security officers have complaints on their tables concerning car parts that have been removed from different cars.
Now we're going to take a look at the devastating consequences of the deepening socio-political and security crisis hitting the northwest and southwest regions of the Republic of Cameroon for close to 3 years today, especially on the educational sector. Institutions have simply been shut down in several parts of the two Anglophone regions of the country, and hundreds of thousands of students and pupils have not been going to school for the past 2 academic years, and even the higher institutions of learning in the two Anglophone regions of the country have been badly affected by the deepening crisis. And one of such institutions is the Catholic University Institute in Boya. Derek Jato Osman.
After being hit too by the Anglophone crisis, His Lordship Bishop Emmanuel Boshu of the Boya Diocese, Chancellor of this Catholic University Institute of Boya, CUIB, is on campus for the 11th board meeting, during which he organized a brief session with the teaching staff and reminded them on the value CUIB was created.
So we have skills, we have capacities. Once you build those ones, the intelligence is there. You can just do anything. That was a simple principle on which this whole thing was worked.
Concerning the Anglophone crisis that is draining everything and very fast, Bishop Emmanuel Boshu said the institution never envisaged such a crisis.
When we were starting this thing, there was not even in the wildest of dreams the idea that a moment like this would come.
And it was for that reason that Senator Mbela Moki Charles, a board member of CUIB, also gave some word of encouragement to this teaching staff.
We also want to assure you that we are aware of the difficulties that we have went through. We shall stand by you in these difficult times.
And what Father George Keze Jingwa, president of CUIB, tabled for deliberations was not only the fractures brought by the Anglophone crisis, but also the fast-changing academic landscape.
The new kind of education we are proposing is a growth mindset entrepreneurial education. We focus on growing and innovating and learning and innovating and innovating and accepting change.
And the crisis is still there. But critics say solving the Anglophone crisis is solving all the problems brought by the crisis.
And still talking about the consequences of the Anglophone crisis, as the number of internally displaced persons increase, as many people are kicked out of their homes by continuous violence and gun battles between pro-independence fighters and separatist pro-independence fighters and elements of the National Armed Forces. Unwanted pregnancy is also on the rise. Unprotected sexual intercourse, as well as the number of children without birth certificates, is also on the rise. And of course, teenage mothers, the number of teenage mothers is also on the rise in localities like Kambe in the northwest region of the country. And these facts are being presented by the African Justice for Peace Academy in the Kambe in the Ndonga Mantum Division, northwest region of the country, and reaching out to the teenage mothers, hosting several internally displaced persons in Kambe. The African Justice for Peace Academy said over 400 internally displaced children in Kambe alone are living without birth certificates and of course food and other basic necessities, in a bid to empower some of these people handicapped by the Anglophone crisis. The African Justice for Peace Academy trained some with skills, equipped some with skills like dress making in the area of tailoring, as well as hairdressing, farming, and also give them materials to work and empower themselves. Most of them receive tools to use in self-empowerment, and the ceremony chaired by the senior divisional officer from Ndonga Mantum Division. The participants, some of them were traditional rulers, and they received the aid from the organization. Now take a listen to one of the IDPs, as well as Abanda Marcel, who is the CEO of African Justice for Peace Academy.
Many things that we were ignorant of, like on this unwanted pregnancy and unprotected sex. That is what is killing us here in Ndonga Mantum. Because when you go into every community, when you look at the age of birth, you see as from 15 years a child will be having a child, which is not really good. I'm one of the victims. I get birth at the age of 16, and actually now I'm still with my one child.
We put in place the RISE Center, which is Rehabilitation Inclusive Empowerment Center for teenage mothers with their children. This is because we observed that the rate of teenage pregnancy was increasing in our society and in Africa. So we put up this program to rehabilitate them and send them back economically and financially to our objective. So far we've been able to produce up to 100 birth certificates for the youngest. Already we have identified more than 400 in one quarter just in Kambe, more than 400 in Binju, children with that birth certificate. Our identification process is still on. And we have also been able to source for assistance, economic assistance, financial assistance, which the teenage mothers and some of them are hosting IDPs in Kambe. They are going back to take home to them to start some economic activities. We have also been able to transform to train people in different fields, tailoring, hairdressing, and other activities. And we're empowering them also, not just for themselves, but to see how they will also train others to be economically IDPs.
And the Cameroon government is stepping up the capacity of the functioning capacity of the customs department, and of course the ability of the officers to check issues connected to that department. And some 142 custom officers have come to the end of a special training at the Douala Naval Base and graduating with ranks such as lieutenant. 72 of them received training training as marine custom officers and the marine customs, according to the Minister of Finance, Louis-Paul Mutazi, were trained within a special memorandum of understanding signed between the Ministry of Finance and that of Defense. The ceremony also witnessed the presence of the Minister of Defense, Finance, and of course Public Service and Administrative Reforms. The end of course ceremony took place today at the Douala Naval Base. In the following extract, take a listen to Cameroon's Minister of Finance, Louis-Paul Mutazi.
Before talking about infrastructure, you have to have people, skilled people who have the ability, who have been trained to do the job. If you have infrastructure but without people who have been trained, you can't do anything. So I think this can be the second step. The first one was the training of the people. This is the second batch. There was a first batch, and we think that since now we have a lot of people who have been trained, who have been given training by the people of the Marine, we think that the problem of infrastructure will be tackled. I talked about that in my address, and I think this is one of the things we are going to do right now.
That was Cameroon's Minister of Finance, Louis-Paul Mutazi, speaking there now out of the country. An aid organization said that Mozambique requires life-saving relief to deal with the destructive aftermath of Cyclone Kenneth and save the children. Says the humanitarian situation in the country is significant and life-threatening, and more funds are needed. The United Nations gave Mozambique and Comoros Island $13 million for food, water, and repair of infrastructures. Officials say the death toll in cyclone-hit northern Mozambique is 38, but is expected to rise. That's it for this edition of the news. Thanks for staying with us.